end of the year live video right now. Working on a couple of things to be able to work out. I would like to have it so that I can see better your responses, and so it seems to me like if I have my iPad, I'm using my iPhone to make the recording. It seems to me like if I have my iPad set up to the same channel, that I ought to be able to see this recording. But right now, I don't see that at all, so I'm not sure what I would do to make that be a thing where I can see it, view all. We'll see history. Oh, maybe this will work. There we go. Let's see. All right, looks like we've got set up here. Yeah, the last day of 2020-25. And I thought I would just take some time. Let me turn off the sound on this one. Yeah, I thought I would just take some time to kind of wrap up the year, kind of talk about the things that went on during the year and all of those sorts of things, just kind of wrap it up. And I do want to welcome any of you that will watch. It looks like there's one person watching right now. Maybe that one person isn't even me. I don't know, because I've got my iPad going on here in the corner. I'm set up in my little office space here in our house that we built this year. I have another office space that we're planning, kind of a studio, a recording studio that we're planning up above me right now. But the challenge, we've got some challenges in that loft that just haven't worked out, and we knew that we were going to have some kind of little office in here. This is the office slash piano room slash utility room. So when we get done with things, there will be a little electric piano sitting right next to me. My wife will use that. See, my guitar stands behind me. I haven't got the guitars out on it right now, but that'll be happening at some point. Haven't got it done yet, but that'll happen at some point. And so I've got my little recording studio, got my safe behind me, and a couple of things up on the back that are just for treasures and trinkets up there to look at. And just see how this all goes. It is kind of my plan. I'd like to start putting out things like this and recordings and so forth. Right now, people that watch my channels, I've got 4 or 5 different channels. One of them is, like I call it, my preacher channel, and so on that channel I put usually Bible study, short things. It's got some of my old sermons when I pastored down in Puyallup. Some of those are on there. Hello there, Adam's Adventure, and how are you? It says soft, whoever. And I barely can read these things. I don't see so well anymore. And anyway, so those are all just things that I deal with. And so it's been my plan when I retired from pastoring that I would do a lot more writing. I've written several books that are on Amazon and on Draft to Digital. Draft to Digital mostly, or electronic books, of course. So you can do print, but I concentrate usually for my print books. I concentrate on Amazon with that, and so I've got several of those that I want to work on, and some things like that that I'm trying to deal with. Hello there, and glad to see all of you that are signing up. I didn't know if anyone had signed up on the last day of the year and would watch this thing live and just see what's going on. But I do want to thank you for stopping in. It just seemed like a good idea to end the year kind of with a wrap up of things, and nothing formal or anything like that, but just to kind of sit down and talk about what's going on. And it just seems like the last day of the year is a good day to kind of talk about the things that are happening in life, the things that we've been doing and so forth. The year 2025 has been a full one for my wife and I. We retired. I retired from pastoring in 2024. Anita retired from school teaching a year before that in 2023, and several things took place after that. 2023, the end of 2023, we learned that she had cancer, so all of 2023 was taken up with addressing and dealing with the cancer situation. And so that all kind of got done around the end of 2023. And about the same time, the end of 2023, the beginning of 2024, my youngest son, Caleb, began pastoring here in Republic, Washington. And I realized that we were in a place in life, my wife and I, that I could step down from pastoring. Not that I needed to, not that even that I wanted to so much, but that I could step down from pastoring and devote more of my time, especially to writing my books and editing the books that I have already written. And and be able, and at the same time, be able to support him in his ministry up here. And Adam's Adventure, I see, how are you doing? I'm just doing super good. Last day of the year, we're looking forward to next year so very much. And anyway, so we moved up here. We bought it. We had purchased a fifth wheel, a Cougar 316 RLS fifth wheel to live in. We did that in 2022. And September of 2022, we moved into that that Cougar. We'd rented out our house that we still had. Again, in my mind, making some transitions, but I was thinking the transition would be that I would become the second pastor of the church that I was pastor of in Puyallup, and my son would become the lead pastor. But when he chose to make this move here to Republic, and I was for that. When my wife got cancer, I did sit down with him and say, if you've ever thought about the idea of maybe moving on, pastoring somewhere else, this would be a really good time for you to make that move. And so the church here in Republic called him be the pastor the first part of 2024. And by April of 2024, we had found a new pastor for the church in Puyallup. And my wife and I, since we were already living in the fifth wheel, my wife and I, April moved that fifth wheel up here. We moved into an RV park and lived in it until the property that my son had purchased here in Republic had we've got it sufficiently settled so that we'd able to put the RV on it. We lived in the RV up here on the property for about a year, a little more than a year. As we were building the house. We started the house in July of 2024. We didn't really actually move into it until October of this year, just a couple of months, the first week of October. And so things are going pretty well. This year, one of the milestones of the year was that I started on Social Security. So we actually retired before Social Security, and I had some things taken care of so that we were able to kind of, get by, and kind of we're using some savings, trying to use it sparingly, the savings that we're going to use to build the house, but use it sparingly to live on as well, because that's going to supplement my Social Security. And it's turned out really that that Social Security, at least right now, is providing everything that we need to live on. We're doing just fine with what we've got. I would like to get $500 to $1,000 a month more than we earn from Social Security, and I'd like to do that so that I have resources to use to be more of an encouragement to pastors in other places. And so that is part of my goal, although it's not one of my major goals. It is part of my goal to be a minister of encouragement and go out of our church here in Republic to be an encouragement to preachers. And so talk more about that maybe in a few minutes. And so we are able, because my son owns the property, and we are able to live relatively comfortably on the property, just off of Social Security. We've been doing that since February, building the house, of course, and that's taking money out of savings. But as far as living expenses, been able to do that primarily from the Social Security. I want to use some of the other, the interest from our savings and investment accounts, use some of that to help fund my travels, to be an encouragement to preachers. I want to be able to go to churches and to pastors and be an encouragement to them at no expense to them at all. I want to be able to do that on my own nickel, on my own dime. And so use a little bit of the interest that comes from our investments. And then from the sale of my books, and this year, remarkably, 2024, my books have been increasing in their sales, and my royalties have been increasing on that. And so between the two of them, I'm now at about $300 a month above the Social Security that I can use for traveling and that kind of a thing. If you could have a mythical pet, traveling, that sort of thing. We're working on doing our traveling, and that, paying for that, and all those things. So building the house, boy, what a process. We started out in August of 2024, and July or August, and the groundwork. We were going to do the groundwork and then just have a contractor build the rest of the house, but the groundwork turned out to be a terrible chore. The ground here is so hard with such big rocks. There wasn't any way for me for us to do the groundwork, so we ended up having to pay for that, and that meant that we were behind schedule, which meant that we lost the opportunities to have our contractors that we had lined up. They all went on to other things, other projects, so we lost them. So that by the time we got the groundwork done, then it was too cold. It was wintertime. We had to wait until April of 2025 to actually start building the house. And by that time, then it just turned out it was, can I be honest, it was just my wife and I building this place. And that's a challenge because I'm not a builder. My son did the plumbing, and he did help some, and we were able to get some help here and there. But for the most part, it was just fell on my wife and I to do the work. And we did. It was difficult, stressful. I'm not young anymore, and so I felt old at times, felt quite old at times, and quite incapable at times. And because of, first of all, lack of experience in building a house. I was an iron worker, so I know something about metal buildings, but and construction in that sense, but not carpentry and those sorts of deals. And between the lack of skills, carpentry, and then age and just physically unable to do things that I might have been able to do in my older years. The house has got several things. We're choosing to call it a McKinsey custom rather than being mistakes or problems. They're just McKinsey customs, things that we put in here just for us to deal with. And we've been going along with that pretty well. But now that we're in the house, we moved in October, and now that we're in, we still have lots and lots to do. I'm sitting here right now, I'm looking at a window right here that isn't trimmed out yet, which means it doesn't have any window covering on it. I don't have the window coverings done yet, and so there's some light streaming in. Kind of see it on my hand right there, but it's all working out pretty good. It looks like light-wise, it's working out pretty good in there anyway. And so now that we're in the house, I'm able to slow down just a little bit, less pressure on it. We just work on it a little bit at a time from week to week, and just kind of get things done as we can and as we feel like it, and as as other priorities kind of can set back a little bit for us. During the year, we had several preaching trips. I wanted to, when I first retired, I kind of made a goal for my ministry of encouragement. What I said I wanted to do is, because I believe in the local church, I wanted to be home here, and I believe in my son. I wanted to be here to be an encouragement to him. And so what I did is I put out a newsletter, put out a letter, a broadcast letter to my pastor friends and churches, that what I would be willing to do is, what I wanted to be able to do is to be gone from here no more than a month at a time, but up to 2, and no more than 3 months total during the year, 12 weeks. So that really works out to be about one week a month. And so far, it's been way over 1 week a month. The very first year, in fact, 2024, I spent 6 months as an interim pastor of a church within driving distance. And so I was here home during the weekdays, but there every weekend. And boy, that just got to be overwhelming, too much for me to do, to build the house and all the stresses that were involved in that. And then also to to try to take care of that church as well. But at this point, I have been going out preaching out more than once a month, and so that I really haven't done any of that. Be gone for a month or two at a time. I haven't done any of that. Because I don't want to be gone more than 12 weeks out of any current year. So I have had lots of preaching involvement during the year. One of the highlights of the year back in June, my wife and I took our little R-Pod camper that I bought specifically for the purpose of ministry of encouragement, so that I can go to a place and on my own nickel, and I've got a place to stay. My wife and I have a place to stay, and I can pull it behind my little car. It's light enough, small enough, I can pull it behind the car. We took it though to the Hardin, Montana, and to where the Battle of Little Bighorn was. We met my oldest son and his wife there, and spent a week. We did visit churches along the way, and as we were there, we visited churches and tried to be an encouragement and a blessing to them, which was wonderful, a great time to do. And really a blessing. I'm praying that becomes a yearly thing, that my oldest son and my wife and I and his wife meet and spend a week doing a trip that maybe we'll see something that's interesting, because Little Bighorn was incredibly interesting. We went to the reenactment that is held on the grounds of the family that owns the property where the Indian encampment was, and his family grew up there, and what he said is they were teenagers swimming in the Little Bighorn, and all of a sudden people are coming and taking pictures and running metal detectors and things like that around, and they learned that they didn't know, growing up there, they didn't know that that's where the Indian encampment was and where the Little Bighorn, the battle, was fought. And so over the years, they learned about it. They began studying. One of them became a historian. Two of them are artists and that sort of thing. And one's an author, well-published author, one of the most published authors in Montana. And so they began putting together this reenactment on the actual property that the Battle of Little Bighorn is on. You go up, you think about where the monument is and everything, and they say Custer's last stand up on the hill. But the battle actually took place in the Indian encampment, and this family actually believes that Custer died down in the encampment and not up on the hill where they say the last stand took place. Anyway, very, very interesting. We had a great time while we were there, incredible experience. So made that during the summertime. Preaching trips. October, we moved into the house. This was great. The very week that we got the permission to move into the house, we sold the RV, the Cougar fifth wheel that we'd been living in for 3 years. So that was get that out of our hair, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Living the camper life there for those 3 years, it was. I had been thinking about stuff like that for quite some time. I'm trying to think of the term that they use for the minimalist life, sizing down and getting rid of everything that we don't need, and that sort of a deal, and kind of move in that direction. And so we were making steps like that, and then we had opportunity to move in, because I was thinking about my son and transitioning and all of that. And so we bought that fifth wheel. We both loved it. My wife and I both loved this Cougar 316 RLS. It was beautiful, it was wonderful, and we enjoyed living in it. I didn't like pulling it, and never was my plan to pull it very much. That never was on my mind that I'd pull it much. In fact, when I bought it, I bought a nice RV, and I bought one that it was used, and it came with the pickup, because I wanted to know the pickup and camper to match, because I knew I wasn't going to feel very comfortable pulling it. And in my mind, what I was going to do is I would pull it no farther than like 30 miles at a time. We were living in the western side of Washington by Spanaway, Washington, and I was pastoring in Puyallup. We had property in Spanaway, so what I expected would happen is that we would have it on the property in Puyallup, on our property while we're renting out the house, and we'd live in it. Sometimes there we would take it to, there was an RV park, a campground called Alder Lake, that we might go spend some time there. every, a couple, 3 weeks at a time. And then we also had RV parking spaces that we built at the church. And so kind of that's what I was thinking is, but never more than 30 miles. So the pickup, while it's a nice pickup, it's not, it's not, you know, newer and that kind of thing. It's a 2014. I still have it, but it turned out I did not like pulling that trailer at all. I liked living in the trailer, but I did not like pulling it at all. Couldn't see very well. It's big. The pickup is big. That kind of thing. So I didn't like that even a little bit. And so when it came time, we're thinking about it. Oh, and the other thing, living in the trailer. I loved living in the trailer. All those 3 years, I loved living in the trailer. But here's the thing about an RV. It requires, living in an RV, it requires constant upkeep. Constant upkeep. You're constantly checking the seals, making sure that there are no leaks outside. You're constantly cleaning the fresh gray and black water tanks. You're constantly doing those things. You're constantly having to replace propane by take the tanks out and take it to a place where you can buy propane and doing that. They're always doing something like that. Always trying to, there's something to repair, little screws that come loose and that you repair, drawers and things that that you have to repair. Always some little thing like that you're working on. Never anything difficult. With things that were major, there were some major things that happened during those 3 years. I had to replace the refrigerator. And I chose not to do that myself. I hired a professional for that. Hired a professional to replace a fan. One of the ceiling fans had to be, and hired a professional for that. And so there were a few things like that we would bring in professionals for and have them take care of. But most things I tried to do myself. I took time on YouTube channels and started watching RVs on Cougars and on living in YouTube in an RV. And so just was constantly working on it all of the time. And one of the things that came to my mind is, what if I get sick? What if something happens to me and I'm not able to do the maintenance? I already said that we moved into the RV in 2020. I said 2022. January 2023, first part of 2023, we found out that my wife had cancer. And so she spent an entire year in the camper, living in the RV, going through all of the treatments, the chemotherapy, the radiation, the surgeries and everything. We did that living in an RV. But what if that had been me? There wouldn't have been any way for me to do the maintenance that was required for at least 2 out of those 3 years. Probably, it was kind of an off and on thing. So I'm not exact. I won't be able to give you the exact number of months, but I believe it was at least 2 out of the 3 years total that we used the fresh water tank rather than having running water, rather than being hooked up to city water or something like that. So that meant twice a week I had to go out and fill the fresh water tank up. In order, if we took showers every other day, if the two of us took showers every other day, we could get by once a week. But if we wanted to take showers every day, and we did, that meant I was filling up that fresh water tank, twice a week. You have to dump the black tank and the gray tanks once a week. You have to do it, and you don't get a choice whether you're sick or not, whether you're crippled or not. Those things have to be done when you're living in it. And so it was wonderful. We loved living in it. I was very comfortable, but it did have some stresses involved in it, and some challenges there. And then as we were approached, we knew that the house was getting close. We would be getting to the end, and this would be able to move into the house. As we approached that, I started thinking about selling the RV, and I didn't know how long that was going to take to sell it, and I had no idea if it'd even sell up here in Republic. We're almost 3 hours if you're pulling a camper anyway, almost 3 hours from Spokane. We're almost 6 hours from Tacoma, Seattle, that kind of a thing. We're in a very small area. There are a lot of campers in the area, but a lot of people living in Fifth Wheels. But I had no idea if we'd be able to sell the camper. And so in May, remember, we didn't move out of it until October, but in May I started advertising it on Marketplace and Facebook, and we never got any response. Nobody ever, from May, June, July, September, no response. Nobody had an interest in the trailer whatsoever. And then the day that we got the occupancy permit for the house here that I'm in right now, that day, a guy contacted me interested in the trailer, and that day bought it. In fact, what he said is, here, do you want me to help you move out? And we moved out without his help, but so we got moved out, and he came in that, I think it was on a Wednesday that we got the occupancy permit, and we started moving in. By Saturday, we were completely out of the RV. Saturday, he came and pulled it away just that quick. It was, man, what a blessing that was. God answered prayer for us in that one for sure. And that was a blessing to us. And then actually at the same time as the occupancy permit and the selling of the trailer, at that same time, we had an unexpected thing took place. A pastor who's actually my mentor, he probably did more to make me the person I am today than any single living human being, ministry-wise. Name was Dave Brown, and he and his dad were just incredible to me. Well, he passed away suddenly in October. I saw him the first week of October, and just like 3 days after I saw him, he passed away suddenly. He was supposed to have surgery. I didn't know this. He was supposed to have surgery on a Monday morning, but he died Sunday night. And I was asked to deliver the message at the graveside, privileged to do that. But life is different without him. It's not like we saw each other every day, talked every day or anything like that. But he and I had significant ministry over 41 years. He pastored more than closer to 60, but over 41 years that I knew him and pastored with him, we had significant ministry points together, and so things are different without him. I was thinking one of the things that I know is taking place is I'm 67 years old. At this point in my life, there are not 5 men who were pastoring the Pacific Northwest at the time I started, that in the circle that I fellowshiped with. And I understand that there are people that I don't know, but among those that I spent time with, fellowship with, there are less than 5 that are still alive. And that's just kind of one of the things that does is it makes me sense my own age. It happens a lot very often now that people mention my age. Just the other day, my grandson was talking about some neighbors down the road from us, talking about those old people up the hill, being my wife and I, old people. I know I'm 67 and I know I'm old. But I don't, it's kind of weird to think that everybody else knows it too. So that's kind of weird. We were in the United Arab Emirates not too long ago, and the pastors and church members that were with there refreshingly said that they thought I looked young for my age. When they heard that I was 67, they thought that I looked young for my age. But things are changing. They always are. Every day life gets different. We did make that trip to United Arab Emirates. That was something that's been planned. So back in about 2014 or 15, I met a Filipino pastor by the name of Mario Renola. His daughter is a member of the church in Puyallup where I pastored, and he was a pastor of an underground church in United Arab Emirates. And when he reached a certain age, I don't recall what age it was, but the rule was at that time in the UAE that once you reach a certain age, you had, and you're an expat, you're not from the country, you had to retire and you had to move out of the country. You can't live there unless you have a job, unless you're producing income in the country. And so he moved to Puyallup with his daughter. And getting to talk to him, one of the things that we learned is the churches there, the Baptist churches there, are all underground, illegal underground, but they're tolerated. The government knows that they're there, and the government tolerates them as long as they don't actively evangelize Muslims. But one of the things they have not allowed in this period of time, this Brother Ronaldo started, I think, 5 underground churches, and now there are a dozen of them or more in the country. And but one of the things they have never allowed is for a Bible college to be there. And so we started using material that I had written for Sound Baptist Bible College. We started sending them email electronically the courses and the lessons so that they could begin teaching that material over there. Well, so around 2016 or so, I was invited to go for a couple of weeks to spend some time in the UAE, and that trip did not work out. I was pastoring full time, and all the responsibilities and so forth, and that trip did not work out. But now that I am not pastoring, and I know that I'm kind of coming to that season where things like making trips like that are going to become less and less of a possibility. They began really increasingly asking me to come, and I began talking more about it. And so, especially during the beginning of this year, end of 2024, beginning of 2025, we began talking in earnest about putting this together. Originally, I was thinking I was going to go in May, but then because we were behind on the house, we postponed it and moved it to November, the trip. And so we made that trip to the United Arab Emirates in November. It's only been a month ago now that we were there, and quite an experience. We learned so many things while we were there. It was quite an experience being there. And so things are changing in our life. We're going into 2025. I do have goals. I'm not much for resolutions or anything like, but I do have plans. I'm working on my books. And both writing new ones, and I can do that. The reason I can do that is ever since I started the ministry, when I began in going to Bible college in 1981, I was complaining to the executive vice president of the college I went to, Dr. Rick Schrader, about the fact that we're an independent Baptist college I was attending, but the books were written by Presbyterians and Methodists and all of this. And what he said is, the men whose books we would want to read are too busy pastoring to write books. And so that kind of stuck in my head. Well, I started pastoring, and just shortly after I started pastoring, I read about a man that lived in the 1950s. He was a medical doctor and an evangelist as well, and who wrote a significant number of books. And this article I read about him said that the reason he was able to write as much as he did is because he prepared every sermon in manuscript form, and so that it could become a book. So ever since 1984, I have been writing my messages so that they could become books at some time. Of course, back in '84, technology, I'm handwriting my notes and that kind of stuff. Technology has changed. About in 1992, I think, I got my first computer, started, getting my messages. Now they're digitized, and then somewhere in the 90s is when Amazon began, and I recognized almost immediately that Amazon, had the ability in Amazon that was going to become the thing of the future, electronic books. I didn't start out publishing on Amazon. I started out using Lulu Press, which I still have a few books there, but I'm very inactive on it anymore. And so began putting books on there. Well, now, so I have 40 years worth of material to draw from to write books. So I'm constantly doing that. The other thing that I want my books to be affordable, and so that means I think they need to be $10 or less to be affordable, and that means I cannot afford to have any professional editing services done, those sorts of things. I have attempted a couple of times to use some volunteers, but that's never worked out really, really well. I do have one person who worked real hard on it and has edited several of my books, but it takes a long time, and so I just decided I needed to humble myself and start publishing this material and get it online so that it's there and I die. I figure once I'm gone, whatever isn't done won't be done. So I need to get as much online as I can, as quickly as I can. Well, now, because of not pastoring, I've got time. I can go back, not only write new books, convert some of the material, the sermons, into books, but I can also go back to some of them that I've already published. I can edit them, especially now that we have things like ChatGPT and Grok. Those are great tools to use to go back through and edit the work and use them as an editing tool. I do have a paid version of ChatGPT, not a lot of money that I pay for it, but some, and I can go back and do that. I also want to do this. I want to do videos. In my mind, I'm not preaching videos. I do. One of my channels is I just do like short 2 or 3 minute Bible devotional type of thing, studies. I have a channel that I do apologetics. I call Apologetics Advocates, and it's still just videos that are 1 or 2 minutes long. And I don't publish them on my every day, but I try to do once or twice a week, and just some answer some questions and some apologetics type of work. And then my plan was, once I have a room like this, a station like this, then my plan would be to do more of this sort of thing, just philosophizing and talking about life and all that. We'll just see how that all works. I don't know where that's going to go for sure. And then this ministry of encouragement, just going out a little bit at a time, spending some time out encouraging pastors. I think about this. Churches need encouragement and pastors need encouragement. And sometimes the church needs encouragement from the pastor, not the churches. Is the instrument that is the institution of God, and the pastor is the instrument that God uses within the church. But because of the pastor's calling, his job is to raise the standard, and because of that, sometimes the pastor and the church, the congregation, can kind of be in a little bit of a conflict. And so if I can encourage, I'd like to encourage both, but if I can encourage one or the other, I'm going to go step on the side of the pastor and try to be an encouragement to the pastor, because I know after 40 some years of pastoring that it can wear on you, it can be tiring. And so tomorrow is a new year. I don't make resolutions so much, but I have made some plans for the year, some things that are going on. My wife, we meet with my wife's cancer doctor next week. The week after that, we go to Kansas on a trip so that I can be an encouragement to a pastor and a missionary down there. And then also the first part of January, I'm going to be seeing a doctor, a medical doctor, for the first time since 2007. And maybe someday I'll make a video about that, why it has been that I haven't gone to an MD since 2007. I have gone to a naturopathic doctor during that period of time, but that's about it. And so I'm kind of done rambling and unwrapping my year. I don't know what's happened in your year. What would you like to, what stood out in your year? And for those of you that have come on and watched, and some of you that have made comments, I do want to thank you for watching today. May the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.